Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Figg on Football Show. My name's Brock Conkle. Joining me is Coach Trent Figg from Calvin University, as we're going to talk about what's going on with the Calvin University football program. I'm pretty excited to be stepping in for Bob Sack, who usually hosts this show, just to be able to sit down and talk to Coach Figg, get a better understanding of what's going on at Calvin University. Is they had an inter-squad football game coming up. We're also going to talk about what's going on in some of the local college and national college football programs throughout the country. And we'll finish it up with what's going on during the high school football scene. We'll be right back. You're watching live on MichiganSportsRadio.com.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3. Champions!
Welcome back, everybody. My name is Brock Conkle, along with Coach Trent Figg. Coach, you had your inter-squad scrimmage back on September 30th. Over 3,500 people showed up to watch that live. Over 1,000 watched it on your YouTube channel. Pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, it was really exciting. You know, for our players, for our staff, for this university as a whole, to see the excitement for Calvin football, you know, just continues to reiterate the message of Calvin's ready for football.
So how do you go into this? Do you start this like Friday night? What are we going to do the night before a game? Yeah. Waking up?
Yep.
Why don't you take me through the process?
Yeah. So our overarching goal for the scrimmage on the 30th was to create a game weekend and a post game for our players, and what that looks like, what that feels like. So all week long we practice as we're preparing for a game, and then on Friday we have our walkthrough. We had, you know, a team dinner, team chapel that night. Really gave our guys the feel of what Friday night feels like. Saturday morning, we woke up, all had that feeling in our stomach of, you know, a game day Saturday, which was great. You know, had our team meal, got on the buses, went over to Grand Rapids Christian High School, which we'll do next fall. Really wanted to create that for our players. So next year, September 7th, that isn't the first time they go through that.
Do you think the kids and yourself were kind of surprised as the support if you ran out there? I mean, 3,500 people. Actually, I was watching the game. They had to open up the visitor side too to let people sit over there.
You know, so in the planning of the event, we knew that there was going to be support. I did not know what number to put on that support. We knew it was going to be good, but the original plan was for the visitor section to remain closed, right? And so we kick off, and I'm facing the visitor section. I hadn't looked back behind me, and I see people start to fill into the visitor section, and I thought to myself, well, we must be full back behind us, right? So, you know, everyone was very excited, very pleased with that. There was over, you know, 3,500 people there for a scrimmage against ourselves with 62 players. So
the kids run out first time, they hear that cheer.
Yeah.
What did you see in their eye?
Yep. So I could see in their eyes of, man, this is worth it, right? The support is here, and they were excited. Our student section, I think they stood the entire scrimmage. It was great for our players to truly feel and to hear the support of what Calvin is.
So let's go back to the scrimmage.
Yep.
Offensively, what are some of the things that stood out?
Yeah. So, you know, we wanted to accomplish the operation of our offense. When we got to the scrimmage, we were 21 practices in, and so we wanted to be able to execute our tempo. We wanted to be able to motion and shift. We wanted to be able to effectively run the football, throw the football down the field to be explosive. And so, you know, we were able to do that. As an offense, we were fairly clean. I think we had two penalties on offense, 2 penalties on defense. So we were able to execute clean. We had a full officiating crew there for those purposes. So I was very pleased with that.
Name some of the players that stood out for you.
Yep. So first I'll start with our offensive line unit. So those guys have done a great job this fall of being leaders. So if you ask me what unit has improved the most all fall long, I would say it's our offensive line. Those guys are bought in. Coach Michael Steffen does a great job with those guys. They did a great job of taking charge. When you look at the skill positions, Hunter Hogan did a great job. He played on both sides of the ball for us, had a couple of really nice catch and runs, returned kicks for us. He stood out. Luca Pryor, one of our young men that played quarterback, I think he was 14 for 17 for like 140 yards. So he had a very solid day.
Let's go to the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. You know, Coach Lawson, our defensive coordinator, we've talked all along how we're going to be a multiple defense. We want to show an odd front and show an even front. We want to show multiple coverages and then a multiple blitz package as well. And so 21 practices in, we were able to show what our kids have learned up to this point. We were able to move fairly quickly. We were able to communicate. We were able to be multiple, which I think is really important in our league, to be able to do that with the different types of offenses that we're going to see. So I was very, very, I was pleased with those guys.
Is there any player that kind of surprised you on the performance they had?
Yeah, so our defensive line unit all fall along, I don't want to say held back, but the quarterbacks haven't been live, and so they there hasn't been a prize at the end of their pass rush, all fall along. We made the quarterbacks live in that scrimmage, so we really saw those guys come to life.
So what do you do now? You have your big scrimmage, you're still practicing.
Yeah.
Is it hard to get these kids motivated to, kind of what's next?
Yeah, so when I took this job, the whole emphasis on, hey, we're going to recruit really good football players. We're going to recruit great people, right? Great young men for our program. And I'll be honest with you, we have not had any problems motivating our kids. We haven't gone out there for practice and had to restart practice because they weren't focused. Our kids came to me after the scrimmage and they said, Coach, we want to go. We want to keep going through the end of the regular D3 season. And so we're going to continue to practice. We're going to continue to be physical, continue to work every single day. And I'm very pleased with our kids right now.
When does that switch kind of turn on for, wow, you know what? We're actually going to be starting to play games.
For sure. So we talk about all the time, after November 4th, the last day of the Division III regular season this year, that's when we are on the clock. And so our guys are working right now to build up to that. And then they know as soon as the last regular season game of Division III is over this year, we're on the clock for September 7th next year.
That's exciting.
It is. Our players are excited about that. They, seeing that support on September 30th from our fans, from our university, our players can't wait to go out next fall and play.
All right, last question of this segment. What's the manual for starting a program? You come into this.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't go to class and say, here, this
for sure.
Did you reach out to any coaches?
I did. So they say, all the time, or I tell people all the time, they don't write a book for this. I'll never forget January 19th, the day after I took this job. I walked into my office, I think it was like 6:30 a.m., and I was the only one there, right? We didn't own a football. We didn't own a set of shoulder pads. We didn't have one player on our roster. And so there's some other programs around the country that have started, recently in the last 10 years that have started football. Some have been successful, some haven't. And so, really tried to tap into those resources and just get on the phone with those guys. But also, every university is different, and so the people I met with the most were the head coaches at Calvin to see what they've done. We've been so successful here in really every other sport. And so what structure have they built their programs on? Those are the resources that I've really leaned into.
Well, I can tell by your enthusiasm that it's contagious.
Yeah, no, it's been, I'll tell you what, Calvin, I tell people all the time, Calvin University is committed to excellence, committed to doing things the right way. And so it's easy to wake up and get really excited about this place.
All right. We're going to take a break. You're watching on MichiganSportsRadio.com. We'll be right back, and we'll talk about what's going on in the college football scene. We'll be right back.
Where will the next revolutionary idea come from? That next breakthrough in scientific research? Or that next literary masterpiece? At Calvin University, you can dream bigger, think deeper, aim higher. Our world-class faculty push students to keep asking hard questions and never settle for the status quo. Become part of the solution to the world's big problems. Become part of a university that challenges students to go beyond themselves as Christ's agents of renewal in the world. Calvin University. Go beyond.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Figg on Football Show. My name's Brock Conkle. Joining me is Coach Trent Figg. Coach Figg, last week in the West Michigan area, there were two really big college games. One of those being Ferris State traveled down to Grand Valley State University. Really big game, but it really didn't turn out to be what it was supposed to be. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was an interesting game for sure. Whenever I first got here, connected with the staff at Grand Valley pretty quickly, went over and watched a lot of their spring ball, saw that they had a good team. And they got out to a really fast start in that game, which I think was big for them. Being in that staff's first year as a staff, I think it was important for them to start fast, and they did. They started quickly, and they really kind of took over the game really throughout the duration of the game.
Do you encourage your kids to go out and watch some of these games?
Yeah, for sure. So our kids really enjoyed to go to those games. They go to some other games in our conference. Obviously, some of them have been lifelong Michigan State fans, so they'll go to those games as well. But we encourage our players every weekend to get out to games.
Another big game was over at Hope College as Alma came in to take on the Flying Dutchman in a battle for first place over there.
Yeah.
What did you see in that game?
Yeah, so, it was interesting watching that game. Hope threw an interception on their first 2 drives, which really kind of put them behind. They threw one on the first drive. Alma didn't get any points out of that one. Then on the second one, Alma intercepts it, takes it down to the 1 or 2 yard line, scores 2 plays later. And I think that really started taking the wind out of their sail a little bit. 2 really good teams, 2 really well-coached teams there, Hope and Alma. Those 2 teams have done a really good job all year long in our league.
When you come back and you talk to your team, let's face it, those are 2 teams you're going to play next year.
Absolutely, for sure.
What do you say to them about, hey, look, we're here where we want to be, and this could be us next year?
Yep. Yeah, so what we do is every week on Mondays, when we have a team meeting, we pull up the MIAA from the weekend before, and we talk through all the different games and, hey, what did this team do well? What did this team do poorly? And you look at turnovers, you look at red zone conversions, you look at time of possession, all those things. And so our team has a ton of respect for our league, for the people that we're going to be playing in our league, but they also see, hey, we're here to compete, and, we're here to go out and play, so we know the different areas that, each week we kind of focus on.
Big game coming up down in East Lansing this week as Michigan travels to play the Spartans. You've had a lot of experience at the D1 level. Can State actually play with Michigan, or what do you think is going to happen there?
It's a rivalry game, and so that always evens the playing field a little bit. It'll be interesting. If I had to guess right now, I'd say that Michigan, they will continue to do what they've done all year long. I think Michigan's a really solid team, but it's a rivalry game, and so this is a huge game.
Absolutely,
it's a holiday in this state this weekend. So.
Well, and you've been around the block. It seems like Michigan State is always hanging around.
Yeah, they are. They've got talented players. They have good coaches on their staff. They will be prepared for the game.
Another big game. Penn State travels to Ohio State, probably the biggest game in the country this weekend.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen there?
In watching both of those programs this year, those are 2 really good football teams. You always say the home team probably has a little bit of an advantage, but man, Penn State's playing really well. I think they're coached really well. Their kids are really tough. I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be a 1-score game. I think it'll truly be, a dogfight all the way through the game.
All right, the big shocker last Friday night.
Yeah.
Colorado, which there's a lot of buzz going on there. Stanford, 29 down, comes back.
I'm telling you. Yeah, I will admit, at halftime I turned the game off. It's 29-0 at halftime. I went to bed, and I have a good friend that coaches at Stanford, and woke up Saturday morning, and wow, yeah, that was. I guess you could say that was a shocker. I mean, Colorado has done so much exciting this year, and Stanford has not done a lot this year. But man, it just shows that's why you play the game, right? Those kids are resilient kids, and they went in at halftime and made some adjustments, and it worked.
As a coach, how do you? Let's face it, how do you bring your team back after blowing a 29-point lead?
Yeah, I think you've got to go in and show them some very tangible things they can do, and you got to show them, hey, there's not one play that's going to equal 29 points. It's going to be drive after drive after drive, and your kids have to believe that. That shows that the kids at Stanford believe in what that new staff is doing, because a lot of kids, a lot of coaches, a lot of programs down 29-0 at halftime, they just start getting ready for the next week.
We got one segment left. You're watching on MichiganSportsRadio.com. We'll be right back after this.
From a single cell to a blooming ecosystem, life stops us in our tracks. The building blocks of life are also the foundations of innovation, healthcare, medicine, ecology, and sustainability.
Stay right about here.
God's world needs biologists with deep technical knowledge and a hopeful biblical perspective. At Calvin University, you'll develop a passion for research, a deep love for God's world, and the courage to ask tough questions about ethics and integrity. At Calvin, We believe when you study living things, you'll honor the Creator and you'll be good for the world. Join us.
Welcome back, everybody. We're in our third and final segment as we talk a little bit about the high school scene around West Michigan. A couple really big games last week. One of those was Catholic Central. They took on Grand Rapids South Christian. Todd Colzer, the head coach of Grand Rapids Catholic Central, used to be at Grand Valley State University. Coach Figg, what do you think that brings to a high school team, having somebody with that high school experience?
Yeah, he's done a great job there. Those players play really hard. And really what I think it brings is he has an understanding of what excites high school football players, right? As he's been able to recruit, he's been able to see all different angles of it. He knows what those guys need to be prepared for the next level, which a lot of those kids want to go play at the next level. So he has an understanding of what their coaches at the next level are going to be expecting when they walk in day one. So I think he's able to bring that perspective. He's able to get buy-in from those kids because he's been there before.
Well, you also got to look at Coach Danny Brown. It's not his first rodeo out there either. He's very talented coach in the West Michigan area.
Yeah, Danny is very, very highly respected. I'm a big Danny Brown fan. He and I have become good friends. And he does a great job with his players. When you talk to his players, when you talk to his players' parents, they absolutely love the program that he runs there at South Christian. Top-notch kids, top-notch coaching staff from top to bottom there.
Another big game, the Rockford Rams took on the Granville Bulldogs. Rockford came out on top on that game with a pretty impressive win.
Yep.
What can you tell me about those two programs?
Yeah, I mean, both those programs, when you look at their kids, what I think about really the last two Fridays, when you look at Michigan high school football, I mean, you look at the weather, you look at the rain, it's a little bit cooler. There's tough kids. There's not coaches or kids out there that bat an eye when the weather changes. So two programs with really tough kids. When you look at Rockford, I mean, there's an expectation there for those kids to win. They're tough kids. They're coached really well, and they know the game of football really well.
I have a statement that I make with Rockford that usually when they go into a game, the visiting team or when they're on the road, you might as well put the scoreboard as 10-0,
Yeah.
and now let's go.
Yeah.
Granville, though,
right?
They don't think that way.
Not at all. Those kids from Granville, the coaches at Granville, they're tough. They're coached a specific way, and they're not going to walk in and back down to anybody, which is very impressive as a program.
Very tough up front.
Yes, very, very tough.
They have some running backs that are pretty talented as well.
For sure.
All right. However, personal preference.
Yeah.
They run the T formation.
Right.
A lot of people call it the wing T.
Yeah.
I call it the straight T.
Yeah.
Can a team, you don't see it at the college level.
Right.
Can a team win the big game, the ultimate state championship with that type of offense?
I think when you look at the programs here in the state that run that, the kids believe in what they're doing. So my answer would be yes. I think that they can because of the belief in that system. The kids have to believe in it because it's so different. They don't turn on the TV on Saturday and see a whole bunch of teams doing that, right? So they've got to believe in what they're being taught. But I do think because it requires toughness to play in that scheme. And from a defensive perspective, when you're defending that, that's a challenge. I mean, you have an entirely different game plan for that. So I think teams can go win big with that.
One of the greatest high school games I ever saw was John Shillito at Zeeland West. He runs wing T, and he played a team called Detroit Country Day. And fourth quarter, next thing you know, he was doing all kinds of just weird stuff, and they can throw the ball out of that too.
For sure.
So you got to be careful.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
Not just run.
Absolutely.
And it's very impressive. It's almost like a chess match, and at the end, they just bring out the big pieces, so to say.
Yeah.
Big week in high school football, as this is the final week of the regular season. Then playoffs start.
Yeah.
What do you and your staff do during that playoff?
Sure. Yeah, so every Wednesday, our staff sits down and we have every high school game in the state of Michigan, and we go through and we decide, hey, these are the games that we need to be at. Maybe we haven't seen them play yet. Maybe there's a couple players that we need to see again. I've really enjoyed this fall getting live evaluations on kids. This fall has really allowed us to be diligent on Friday evenings to really see kids in warm up, to see kids between the series, because we're not thinking about a game the next day. And so we'll be very strategic about the games that we go to, whether it's to see specific players to get an evaluation, whether that's in recruiting, whatever that looks like. But we'll be out. I mean, we'll have a full presence until, the last whistles blown in Michigan this year.
Along with that, Michigan Sports Radio will be out there as well. Actually, I'm looking forward to this Friday. I do all the Rockford games, and Rockford takes on Hudsonville.
Yeah.
Big Ben Dixon, your offensive coordinator, is going to come up and be my color person during the game, and that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Ben's great. So Coach Dixon has brought a real dynamic to our offense here at Calvin, and he was really excited when I brought this to him about, getting on the radio with you guys to do the Rockford game, and he spends a lot of time in Rockford. He's really excited to get on the broadcast with you.
All right, this is going to wrap up this week's show. Once again, I appreciate Bob Sack for letting me kind of sneak in and take his place this week. There's going to be one final show coming up mid-November as Bob will be back along with Coach Figg. Once again, thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great week.
Appreciate you. Go Knights.